I can tell you right now that bearing is not awesome. My goodness. Yeah, this thing was a mess. What's up guys? Welcome back to TBN Off-Road. Ace is here helping me. The axle's out of the Jeep. We've got a lot to do. You guys probably saw in a previous video that I've got a leaking rear locker. I was hoping it was something simple like a fitting on the copper line. Turns out it was the bonded seal inside the locker. So the locker's out, the ring gear's off, it's actually separated. And we've also got a couple bad bearings on the pinion. So we've got the seal to fix, we've got rear gears to repair. We got a lot to do. We got a wheel in a week. Let's get after it. Okay, I actually took some measurements from the rear gear set before I pulled everything apart to make reassembly easier. And this rear gear set was a mess. We had 0 preload on the pinion. The backlash was at like 16 thou, which it should be 6 to 10. The carrier essentially just fell out of it. I knew it was loose when I put it back in. And then I think half of the ring gear bolts were like finger tight. There was no Loctite or anything on them. So not happy that we had a locker leaking, but I'm glad I actually got in here so we can repair what we need to repair and hopefully not have to worry about it for a long time. I'll let you guys take a look at what this locker looks like here in a second. The way I kind of troubleshot this was I pulled the cover off, I went ahead and pressurized the locker, and I could hear air obviously escaping inside the case somewhere. So I just started kind of holding my hand up. I've seen people use soapy water and just kind of spray, you know, the expected areas to see if it bubbles. I knew it wasn't coming out of the bulkhead. I thought maybe it was coming out of this guy, my seal that you guys again saw me replace in another video. These O-rings in here like to get folded or get metal in there. And this was actually good. So essentially I just started like kind of holding my hand around it and I could feel air coming right around the ring gear and right out of the locker. So let's show you what that bonded seal looks like. So obviously I pulled the carrier out. You have to remove the ring gear in order to get to this. There were Allen bolts that kind of came through the other side that the ring gear was blocking. But this essentially comes in 2 pieces. And the bonded seal is behind here. So I'm gonna actually pull the rest of this out and then show you guys what the bonded seal actually looks like. So I went ahead and reinstalled the seal, or the seal housing on this side. And what I've seen is you can basically pressurize this copper line. And what happens when you actually do this, when the locker is engaged, is this gear set will come out and it will lock everything together over here. So hopefully I can just apply some air pressure here and pop all this out, and then the bonded seal is behind it. Don't have it small enough. There, you see it come up. There we go. There's the seal. You guys look at that. Not 100% sure where that would be leaking from. Hopefully this is what our problem is. This is the only thing I've ever heard anyone ever replacing on a locker. I've got a new one here. So yeah, we'll throw this in and slap it back together. I'm gonna clean this out just to make sure we don't have any metal debris or anything in here that could be compromising that seal. I did look at that a little bit more, and you can kind of see some wear. Here and here you can kind of see where the gray is kind of worn off. So I'm not sure if just because it was starting to leak, if that kept leaking. I'm not 100% sure, but that's the only difference I could see from the old one. So we'll clean this up and drop the new one in. All right, new seal. There we go. It's kind of a pain to get that started. All right, and this guy just drops right back in. So we are good to go. We'll go ahead and flip it over, reattach everything. I'll toss the ring gear in the oven for, I don't know, a while. I'll move on to other things while we're doing that. So there's 2 holes here. And I did mark this when I took it off, but they obviously wore off. I don't think it honestly matters. So just gonna drop this baby back on there. There we go. Line them up, flip it over. We will get the bolts in. After we clean off all of the wonderful smelling gear oil, here is these tiny little guys that just drop in here. There, you got the Allen heads there. I'll go ahead and tighten these down. Get in the ring gear. Ooh, it's a hot potato. Seriously, oh, she's gonna be close. Whew, that's warm. Line up. Oh, she fell right on. Look at that. Okay. Good, Loctite. There we go. Start that one. I put that in the oven for about 45 minutes at 450 degrees. No, 400 degrees. So it fell right on there. All right, we'll hit those with an impact just to suck them up a little bit and then run the rest in. Okay, so I just ran all these barely snug with an impact. Obviously I'm not going to torque it while the ring gear is still 400 degrees. So we'll let that cool back down and then I'll come back and torque all these to, I think it's 135 foot-pounds. Okay, so my old vise was too small. So I had to go buy this behemoth at Harbor Freight. But I can finally get something to hold this ring gear. I've been messing around trying to hold this and for 135 foot-pounds it just doesn't work. So you guys saw me put Loctite on this as I tighten it up. I should not have done that. I should have just tightened everything up, let it cool off, and then put the Loctite on. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to take these off, clean up the threads, reapply the Loctite, and then go ahead and torque everything down. So there's one off. Clean these threads up, reapply. I'm just using a wire brush and a Loctite. Okay. I already did this one, so I just went opposite it. There we go. Marker. And I'm just marking a straight line on these. I'm not sure if that's honestly going to stay there with the gear oil and heat and everything, but if they don't burn off and I do pull this back out, I can at least look to see if they've spun at all. Okay, I'll just go ahead and finish all these others, and like I said, I'm going to kind of do opposites and then move and do the opposites. 10 ring gear bolts, so you just kind of work yourself around. All right, everything's torqued up, marked up. So ring gear is back on. Now we got to put the carrier bearings on. We got the carrier bearing on the press, or the carrier on the press. We got our new carrier bearing. This is Timken. It's a part number right off of ARB's website. So basically what we're going to do is take the carrier bearing, put it on here, and then we will press these onto the carrier. I'm going to put just a little bit of high pressure grease around here just to kind of help it slide on, and I mean a really little bit. I just don't want it to catch. The biggest thing we got to worry about with this is getting that bearing set straight. If you get it kind of cockeyed, then we're gonna have issues. So we'll drop that on. I've got a an inner race from the old bearing that I'll set on top of that, and then ideally you'd have like a giant socket, like a 38 mil socket. I don't have one of those, so I'm going to try, this is just 3/16 steel. We're going to try to press it that way. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to work. Also, the way my press is, this kind of slides around a little bit, so we're going to have to be careful as we start it to make sure it starts straight, and then after that we should be able to just press everything on. All right, that side was good. You saw me kind of spin the bearing each time and make sure that it's still spun. That's just to make sure that we're not binding that cage as it goes down. As long as it still spins, and we're good. So I flipped it over, put the other side on. We got it pretty straight here. That actually worked out pretty good. So we will go ahead and press this side on. All right. Both carrier bearings are pressed on. Again, I forgot to mention that they're tapered, so make sure the taper is going out. But yeah, both these are on, bearings look great. I think now we'll move on to taking the pinion out and finish cleaning up the housing. Okay, now we have to get this pinion out, we have to take this pinion nut off, pull this yoke out, and then beat the heck out of this pinion to get it to fall out of the case. I do have an air hammer. We've got some big, just BFH hammers. So hopefully between those two, we can get it out. I know sometimes this is kind of the biggest pain in the butt. So I'll start with the pinion nut. Let's see if this will come off without having to pry anything. Yay! Cool. Let's see if we can get this baby off. There we go. All right, yoke is off. All right, we'll try and get this seal out next. I'm probably just gonna shove a flathead screwdriver in there and try to beat that around. I really don't want to hook and pull, so we'll try that first. There we go, seal's out. Get the oil slinger out. I can get my hand in there. There we go. Okay, oil slinger. I can tell you right now that bearing is not awesome. I want to see if I can hit this with just a hammer, because this was so loose. I mean, look at that. That whole thing. Wow. That should not happen. That was very, very loose. I can tell you right now, the crush sleeve was bad. My goodness. Yeah, this thing was a mess. So this crush sleeve should be all the way down here. So you can see there's already a gap in there. And basically what happens is under acceleration and deceleration, because these gears are not straight cut, there's actually a thrust factor that pushes and pulls this pinion as you accelerate and decelerate. So what happens is over time, it works this crush sleeve, either moves it or it just compresses it more and more and more, and you end up with no preload, which is what we had. So I am actually switching to a crush sleeve eliminator, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I'll measure this just to make sure I've got kind of a baseline to start the crush sleeve eliminator, but that is so far off that I don't even know if it's gonna help me very much. We had a ton of noise out of the rear end. Those honestly don't feel too bad. It's pretty loose on the cage, but it's not terrible. This guy, he's not terrible either. It could have just been that there wasn't enough preload on there, but obviously since I'm in here, I'm gonna replace all this stuff. So, all right, next steps. Next thing is we have to get this race out of the housing. So I've got some brass punches and a hammer, and we're just gonna beat that backwards. I don't know if you guys can see it, there's a second race back in here for the inner bearing. So we need to beat the inner bearing out, and then we'll come from the inside and beat this one out. There we go. There we go. All right, now I'm going to pull the old bearing off of the pinion. I have a clamshell puller here, so just like what we did with the carrier bearing, I'll go ahead and pull these off. Okay, bearings off. These things are awesome. If you guys don't have one, it makes this so much quicker. There's a bearing. All right, I had old bearings from another job. So I went ahead and ground these out so that they will slide on. Just enough, because we're gonna have this on and off and on and off. So I'm pretty sure I already did this one. Yeah, so see, it just slides on and off there perfectly. So now, because what we're gonna do is, in order to set this pinion depth in the housing, you basically have to change this shim pack. So these shims slide on here and they go between the actual head of the pinion and the bearing itself, and that will set the depth of the pinion in the actual housing. So I went ahead and measured these. It was about a 18 thou and 20 thou. So we'll reuse these as a starting point and then kind of go from there. We will put the new races in the housing now, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, for some reason the audio didn't work on the other side, but you guys saw me drive that front race in. So here is the rear race, and we'll go ahead and set it. And again, you're just making sure everything is clean and this starts straight. Just making sure that goes in straight. well, we're doing the wrong thing with the right thing with the wrong tools. The lip of this around here is supposed to catch the actual race, and that one is just slightly too big. It's still going in crooked. All right, plan B, punch. Okay, so I wanted to show you that far bearing is sitting on a shoulder, and so this rear bearing all the way in the back there, it is butted up against that shoulder. And if we go around the other side, you'll see the same thing. So if you look here, you can see the seal is actually butted up all the way around. So I thought it wasn't going anymore, but it was completely seated, so we're good to go. Okay, so we have our bare pinion. We have the two shims that we pulled off of it. We're going to start there. So those will go on, and then I told you I had setup bearings. These are the same brand, the same part number, the same everything that we're going to put back on. So these are Timken bearings. I actually had some other bearings that were another brand, and I put calipers on them, and they were like 30, 40 thou off. So that would have made a massive difference. So I just honed out the inside with like a flap disc on a Dremel. So this guy, and they're a nice press fit, but those should be easy to come on and off. So that guy's going to press on. I've got the crush sleeve eliminator with some shims, so I'll grab that now and tell you how to set that up. Okay, I got this somewhat organized. So everything up here is what actually came off of the Jeep. These are the shims I just had laying around, which I'm not sure if this is going to be good enough because I don't have any really small ones like 5 or 2 thou, so we're just going to have to see. But I went ahead and measured everything with calipers, labeled everything, and I took a bunch of measurements when I took everything apart. So I'm going to start with all these measurements. We'll run a pattern off of that. The other thing I have to do is, because I'm not using a crush sleeve, I've got to set up my crush sleeve eliminator. So I measured the crush sleeve at 526. So the new crush sleeve, let me grab it and I'll get a measurement off that. It is 515, take a couple measurements here. 521, 516. So 515 is probably a safe value for that. Okay, so we're going to call that 515. So that is about, what, 11 thou? So I'm going to have to add at least probably a 10 thou, maybe 12, since it was so loose, to this guy as it slides over here. Okay, so there's a 12. So I'm going to start with a 12 and then the crush sleeve eliminator. Then we're going to grab the shims that we started with. It's very hard to grab. And we'll drop those babies on. And now we need our big bearing, which goes like this. Again, this is our setup bearing. Oh, gotta move this first. Setup bearing. All right, I'll put our crush sleeve eliminator back on there. Come on, there we go. It's hard to do holding the camera. Okay, so we got setup bearing, crush sleeve eliminator with the shims we talked about. Got my other setup bearing. Slide the pinion through, setup bearing on, and we're going to grab a little slinger, this guy, and the old pinion nut, not the new one. And we just have to start running that in and get some preload on it. Okay, so I torqued this to 160 foot-pounds, and I still have no preload. So it should have tightened up as we tightened everything. So I think right now we have maybe too many shims in there. So I'm going to take that shim out, run just the crush sleeve eliminator and see what happens. So I'm not 100% sure right now. It's the first time I've dealt with a crush sleeve eliminator, so we'll see. Okay, I reassembled that with the without a shim, and now we've got some resistance on there. So let me see. I'm thinking we're gonna have to put a smaller shim because I don't think that pinion nut is torqued enough yet. But let's see here. And this is a rotational torque. It's giving us 15, 20, 21 foot-pounds. That's actually right there. And we're just going to end up playing this game. I'm not going to film this whole thing, but this is going to go in and out and in and out and in and out until we get that shim pack behind that crush sleeve eliminator right. So it's going to take a few tries. It's going to be tedious. I'll let you guys know what I'm doing. Okay, a little bit of update. I played around with this for a little bit, and I actually misread that torque wrench. My torque wrench has a like a maximum torque value there on the blue line. So as you try to break it free from not moving at all, it peaks and then it comes back. So I was reading the peak. It was actually only like 10 foot-pounds with no shims in there. So I can't make it any shorter than that. So right now, just to get the gears set up, and I can figure this crush sleeve eliminator out later. For now, I just went ahead and torqued everything down with no crush sleeve eliminator and no crush sleeve. So this is at about 20. Which is 15 to 25. So I've at least got the pinion set for now, so I can go ahead and put the carrier in and we can start working on backlash and seeing like exactly where the pattern is, because this is going to have to come in and out multiple times, and I'd rather just keep on moving and figure out the eliminator later. In worst case, I'll just put a crush sleeve in it, but that's a problem for future me. So on to the carrier. Okay, I've got the earlier shim packs that we disassembled. And we're going to slide this back in here and just get a pattern and see where we're at. I'm trying to protect that copper line. Okay. I'll put the bearing caps on and see what that does. Oh, I hate these dang things. They're just always so fragile. I did buy an extra one just in case I break this one, which I probably will. All right, we'll put a feeler on here and see where we're at. Okay, we got the dial indicator hooked up. I got it set at 0 there. Let's see what this backlash is. 12. Okay, so we need to move the pinion that way and tighten it up a little bit. So let's see if I can find a small shim. All right, I went through a few tries here, and we've got the total shim packed on the left for the driver and the passenger side, and then the actual backlash. So you can see I started, when I took it apart, it was 15, put everything back together, and it was 12. I added a 7,000 shim on the driver's side just to increase carrier preload because it fell out. So that gave me 11. And the spec is 6 to 10, so I tried to tighten it up. Went a little too far there at 3. And then this last setup was a 7 thou on the left and a 17 outside of the normal setup factory bearing. So that ended up giving me, I think, 4 extra thousandths of preload, and it's nice and tight in there, and then that put my backlash right at 10, so a little on the loose side. But right now I'm going to get a pattern and see how our pinion depth is. All right, I've got my marking paint here. Mix this with some gear oil, nice and thin, so it actually comes off on a pattern. We're just going to paint some gears here. There's that. We'll go ahead and run a pattern. So the drive side is really hard to see. The coast side, you can kind of see it's very out on the tip and it's deep. So I'm gonna go check the book and see what we need to do. You can kind of see a little better the paint transferred on some of the other gears. So we got a round at the top and it's all the way out on the toe. So right now it's saying the pinion is too close, so we'll drop a shim, move the pinion out, and run another pattern. So I went ahead and moved a couple different scenarios here, but now we've got a little bit different pattern. Again, it's really hard to see, but you can see right here, now we've got kind of a curve towards the root and then a flat line at the top. The drive side is pretty much non-existent, but again, it's a used gear set, so it's going to be really hard to get a pattern on the drive side. So this right here shows me that we are now too far away, so I've at least bracketed too close and too far, so I'll start dialing that in. All right, well, this took a while. I'm not sure how it's going to show up on camera, but I'll at least let you see what I ended up with. You can barely see the wear pattern there. So we are centered from heel to toe. There's just a little bit of a nick of paint there at the top, and it's pretty much centered top to bottom. I could probably put it just a touch deeper, but for used gears, I think I'm happy with it. The backlash is 7,000, which is a little tighter than what it was. It's on the tighter end of the spec, which I'll take. For the first time doing gears and not knowing really what I was doing, I'll take it. So we'll go ahead and work on that crush sleeve eliminator. I might just put a crush sleeve in it, so we'll see. Final shim pack was 30 thousandths. Got the new bearing. Put just a little bit of grease on here just to help out the process. And press her on. Okay, final assembly. We have our new front pinion bearing. We will lube that up. It will take a minute for the oil to actually get up there, so we'll make sure these get nice and lubed before we install. So that guy goes in there. There's our oil slinger. So we have a brand new crush sleeve on here. I'm gonna put just a little more oil on this guy. Okay, and I'm going to put the seal in first, and then we'll slide the pinion in, then we'll tighten everything down. So seal first. Okay, I put some black RTV around that just as an additional seal. And then you just have to be careful getting this started so that you don't start it crooked, or else you can damage the seal. So seal is installed. I've got the bearing lubed. We've got our crush sleeve on there. And that crush sleeve, you can see one side's a little bit bigger than the other. This is the side that'll get crushed, goes down. I'm gonna put just a little bit of gear oil on these threads to make sure it's easier. So we're gonna put pinion in, nice and easy. Okay, I'm gonna squirt just a little bit of RTV. I don't think this is really necessary, but we're gonna put just a little bit on the inside of this yoke. It was on there when I took it off. I think that's a little high lift trick. Just as a little extra insurance from leaks. Slide this guy on. Got a new pinion nut that will hopefully engage. Seems like it's on. And go to town. Still got a long ways to go. Those new pinion nuts are oblong, so it just takes a lot of force to get them over the threads. Oh, there we go. All right. That is actually pretty close. Let's make sure. And when that goes, guys, it goes really quick. They're 15 to 25, and we are right at 25. Sweet. I've heard if you kind of do this a little bit, it frees up those bearings some. 22. Yeah. 22. That is perfect. Sweet. All right. So pinion's installed. Now we just got to dump the carrier in. I'm gonna put the carrier in with the current ARB seal. I think I might have messed up this line. I'm gonna throw it in there, hook the line up, pressurize it, and just see if we got any leaks before I do final assembly. All right, backlash is about 9. So that's within spec. So good to go. We'll hook this up. I got to move this just a little bit to make sure it clears the bearing cap, but we'll hook this up, make sure this doesn't leak, and then run a pattern. Well, as I grabbed it, it broke off. So I'll grab the new one. I'm glad I bought another one. I'll keep this old one as a setup bearing, and we'll move on. You got to put those two little O-rings in and make sure that these don't roll over on themselves. They seem really big when you put them in, but they fit nice and snug once you get them in there. So I couldn't film and do it with one hand, but as you press this on, those O-rings want to fold under themselves because it's a really tight fit. If you kind of press and rotate this back and forth, it kind of helps them seat as it walks itself on. So just a little tech tip. All right, we got 6 there. That's 8. So cool, we are within spec. Yeah, make sure you check backlash in a couple spots there because it will change a little bit, but that's cool. We're right in the middle to the tight side. We will run a pattern quick and I'll make sure that's good, and then I'll very, very delicately feed that back up. I did go ahead and open this bearing cap up just a little bit because it was hitting right where I didn't want it to hit. Go ahead and get a pattern, fingers crossed. So I've got just a regular power drill, not an impact. And we'll use it to spin the pinion, and then I'll just put some resistance here on the ring gear to try to make a good pattern. Go the other way. All right, that's pretty much what we had before. So nothing changed. Coast side is still in the center. Like I said, it could be a touch deeper. So there's the coast side, pretty similar to what we had on the last pattern. It's difficult to see, you know, I move the camera around and the pattern looks like it changes, but for the most part, like right, that tooth, it looks like a hamburger. No like really hard edges, it's pretty centered. It's a little towards the heel, but for a used gear set, I will take that. We pray we did not cut that too short. Feed it up into that bulkhead. Okay, we got it up in there. We'll go ahead and put the O-rings and the nut on it. These are incredibly small and not fun to put on. My last one was a little too long, so I purposely didn't cut it that long. Okay, O-rings in, the first one. I actually slid it on a pick, dropped it in the top, and then used other picks to shove it down in, so very tedious. Then we've got this brass washer that drops in. Then the final O-ring. And then the final piece is this little retainer. And once again, hopefully I cut that long enough. We shall see. You need a little like right angle the way this is set up. I'll just spin that all the way down. Okay, we got that retainer in there. I'll go ahead and put this bearing cap back on, and then I'll hook an airline up and make sure that we actually fix what we intended to fix. Well, the airline's way over there, and I would have to put the axle underneath to test it. So we're gonna hope that I did it right, and I'm gonna go ahead and torque these bolts. Put the cover back on, got to put diff fluid in it, and we'll start hooking the axle back up. All right, 80 foot-pounds. All right, looking at it now, I should have left that copper line longer and ran it up through here and around, because right now it's in front of one of those carrier bearing caps, but live and learn. No one said this was going to be a perfect job. All right, go ahead and zip the rest of these on. Okay, airline is hooked up. I'm going to go hit the compressor, and fingers crossed there's no leaks. Okay, my switch panel actually has a low voltage protection on it, and that was kicking on and turned the panel off. Started the Jeep, it was too loud to hear anything on camera, but compressor does not run, locker does not leak, so that is one problem solved. Now I've got to put the axle shafts back in it, put some diff fluid in it, and put it back in the Jeep.
Guys, I got my Meghan Markle shortbread cookie mix. I'm very excited. So the problem is, this is all that was left. All I wanted was the flour sprinkles, and this is all that was left by the time I went to shop. So we got shortbread cookie mix with flour sprinkles.
Shortbread cookies are the best though.
Are you girlies done talking?
The girlies are done talking about Meghan Markle and her philanthropy.
Seth, she's hot. Get over it.
Fair. Oh, all right, guys. I called Mason, and he came over to help me put this big thing in here.
That was all on camera.
Yes. Okay, well, everything's back together. So we're just gonna drive around the neighborhood here and see how we do. Just really looking for any loud noises or anything from the gears. Still have my noise. So it was a coast gear, like when I let off I would get a noise, and it sounded rotational like a pinion bearing. The bearings I took out weren't that bad, so might not have been that. Could just be that the gear set is worn this way. Still definitely there. Honestly, when I was running the drill as those gears were going through, it was just making noise. It was kind of a noisy gear set, so I don't know if that gear set's bad. I don't think it's really hurting anything right now, so it might just need to wear in a little bit too, but I don't find that likely. Turn this locker on. Rear locker doesn't leak, so that's a win. Well, we're driving around town, 40, 45 mile an hour. No noise, everything's smooth. Jeep's driving great. I think we pulled it off. That's one major job done, so. Yeah, you can hear that rear gear set just a little bit. Honestly, now that I've cut that giant hole in the floor for that fuel access panel, it might just be the fact that the gears were always that noisy and I never heard them before. So they're definitely quieter than what they were. So I'll take it. Okay, it's been a couple weeks. We have wheeled the Jeep. We've driven it on the street, and overall the gear set sounds great. There is just a little bit of noise. It's significantly quieter than what it was before I set up the gears. I know all the bearings are new. My working theory is that the gears were previously set up just a little too deep. If you go back and look at some of the video, you can see that that original wear pattern was just a little too deep. So I think the gears are just gonna have a little bit of grout to them on the coast side, and that's just what we're gonna have to deal with. I also think that since we've cut the hole in the rear and filled that with the fuel access panel, we're just gonna hear those a little bit more. So they're not howling, they're not clanking or banging or anything like that. So overall, we're calling it a win, and I'm super happy with the result. Guys, I wanted to give you just a little kind of tech tips or suggestions if you decide to do this yourself. Everything about this channel is to inspire you guys to kind of take that next step or go try something that you maybe feel uncomfortable trying, whether it's on the trail or in the garage. And for me, this was one of those things. I've tried before to set up gears, ultimately gave it to a shop to kind of finish the job. So number one, happy that I succeeded this time, but a couple things to point out. I would definitely make sure that you buy extra bearings and extra shims, maybe an extra pinion nut or two. Those are just kind of some things that I went through as I was setting up the gears that you guys might not have seen on camera. Pinion nut, for whatever reason, there was a couple that they just didn't want to start on my pinion. They just kept eating the threads. If I put gear oil on the pinion, it seemed to help out a little bit, so you saw me do that towards the end of our setup. And the other thing with shims is once you get under about a 5 thou shim, they just start to destroy themselves when you take them in and out and in and out. So I would suggest buying a couple extra shim packs so you've got options. I was kind of limited in the setup that I could choose, so that would be another suggestion. So if you guys are going to attempt to do this yourself, there are a couple tools that I would recommend that you purchase before you get started. Obviously a shot press. If you don't have access to one, you're gonna have to purchase one of those. The dial indicator with a magnetic base, I got one on Amazon, so not that expensive. The clamshell puller I also got on Amazon. It was under 200 bucks and it works great. You can do the same thing with a different kind of puller and a shot press for a little bit cheaper, but I would not recommend it. Just spend the money on the clamshell puller. I would also purchase the race drive set, and again, I think I got that on Amazon for under 50 bucks. I didn't have the right size there for that one, I think the rear race, but you can find a lot of options with a lot of different sizes in there. So at the end of the day, I think I spent less than what I would have paid a shop to install the gears, and I got some tools out of it. So this job isn't as intimidating as most people make it out to be once you start to understand the process and just get into it. So I hope this video helped you guys understand that a little bit. Guys, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you want some more behind the scenes content, go check out our Facebook and Instagram, TBN Off-Road. If you'd like to support the channel or see our ride schedule, that's on tbnoffroad.com. We'll see you guys next time.